The Iron Serpent's bar wasn't the kind of place people stumbled into by accident. The building sat alone on the edge of the old highway, half hidden by rows of motorcycles and the glow of a flickering neon serpent. Anyone who walked through its doors usually belonged there, or was looking for the kind of trouble that only the serpents could provide. So when the doors burst open with a loud crack, the entire bar froze. The music, loud rock that usually drowned out everything, seemed to fade as every head turned toward the entrance. Bikers paused mid-laugh, mid-card game, mid-sip. Even the old jukebox's hum felt like it held its breath. Standing in the doorway was a woman who didn't fit the world inside the serpent's den. Her clothes clung to her, soaked through by the pouring rain outside. Her hair was plastered against her face. Her cheeks were flushed, her breathing shallow, and her arms wrapped protectively around the swell of her pregnant belly. Her eyes, wide, frantic, darted around the room like she expected a monster to jump out any second. For a moment, no one moved. A storm rumbled behind her, lightning flashing just enough to illuminate her trembling frame. Water pooled around her shoes and streaked down her face, though it was clear that not all of it was rain. She had been crying. A few bikers exchanged confused glances. Strangers didn't come here, women didn't come here alone. And no one walked in looking like they had just escaped something, or someone. Finally, at a shadowed corner table, Ryder stood up. He was impossible to ignore. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark beard, leather jacket marked with patches of the club's history. His presence alone quieted most rooms, but tonight the silence had arrived even before he spoke. He took a step forward. "You lost." His voice wasn't unkind, just cautious. She shook her head quickly. "No, no." Her voice cracked like dry glass. I need help." The bikers visibly stiffened. Help wasn't a word they heard often. Not in this place. Not from people like her. Ryder's eyes narrowed as he approached, boots thudding heavily across the floorboards. Up close, he noticed something the others hadn't yet. She was shaking violently. Not from cold. This was fear. A bone-deep, adrenaline-fueled panic. "Sit down before you fall down," Ryder said gently. But she didn't move. Instead, she turned her head toward the door as if expecting someone to burst in behind her. "He's coming," she whispered. "Please, he's coming." A ripple of unease went through the bar. Ryder glanced outside. The rain-slicked road glistened under the streetlight. Nothing else, at first. Then, faint in the distance, the sound of a car engine approached. Slow, predatory. Ryder's jaw tightened. He nodded toward Tank, one of the biggest serpents, and the man immediately slid off his stool and moved beside the door. "What's your name?" Ryder asked. "Lena," she whispered, wrapping her arms tighter around herself. "And who's coming after you?" She hesitated, terrified even to speak his name. The father of my baby. I ran away. He didn't want me to leave." Anger flickered across the faces around her. Not rage at her, but at whoever had driven her to flee into a biker bar in the middle of a storm. Outside, headlights swelled through the rain. A car crawled to a stop. Ryder nodded once. "Tank, lock the door." The bolt slid into place with a heavy metallic click. The woman, Lena, let out a shaky breath. But the night was only beginning. The rain hammered against the windows in sheets, the storm outside growing angrier by the second. Inside, the bikers stood like statues, watching Lena with a mix of concern, suspicion, and protectiveness they didn't fully understand yet. She sat on the chair Tank pulled forward, her legs trembling so badly the wood vibrated beneath her. Tank handed her a glass of water. His massive hands dwarfed the cup, but the gentleness in his voice surprised her. "Easy now." Deep breaths. Lena tried. Her chest rose, then collapsed again. Nothing calmed. Ryder crouched to her eye level. "Start from the beginning. Who is he?" She swallowed hard. "His name is Aaron. He's controlling everything in my life. Where I go, who I talk to, what I eat. He decided it. I told him I needed space." He snapped. Ryder's eyes darkened. He'd seen that kind of man before. Too many times. "Why come here?" he asked. "I didn't know where else to run." Her voice was barely audible. "Your bar was the first place with lights still on. I just hoped someone would listen." Tank grunted, crossing his arms. "You picked the safest place you could have walked into, sweetheart. Before she could respond, a sound sliced through the storm. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. The kind that belonged to someone who wanted to be heard. Lena's grip tightened around her belly. Her face drained of color. "He found me," she whispered. Everyone in the bar snapped to attention. Ryder raised a hand. Quiet but commanding, and the bikers fanned out, forming a loose semicircle around her. Leather jackets rustled. Boots planted themselves like anchors. Even the jukebox seemed to silence itself. A shadow crossed the window. Another step. Then a sharp, thunderous bang rattled the door. Lena flinched so violently the water spilled from her glass. "Lena," a man's voice roared through the wood. "Open this damn door." The sound of his voice alone made her shrink into the chair. Ryder stood tall, neither flinching nor speaking. Another biker, Ghost, peeked through the blinds. "Looks like a fancy type," Ghost muttered. "Designer coat, expensive shoes, wrong neighborhood. Open the door." Aaron bellowed again. Ryder stepped forward. "Stay behind us," he murmured. "Nobody touches you here." The next 3 seconds stretched into an eternity. Rain thrashed against the bar's tin roof. The bikers exchanged grim looks. Lena's breathing quickened, her hand clamped over her belly. Finally, Ryder unlatched the door with a slow, deliberate click. He swung it open. A tall, polished man stood there, drenched but furious. His hair slicked back, his jaw clenched, his eyes sharp with entitlement. He wasn't built like the bikers inside. He was leaner, smoother, the kind of person who expected the world to bend around his demands. His gaze darted past Ryder and landed on Lena. "There you are," he growled, stepping forward, but Ryder blocked the way with a single motion. "Bars closed," Ryder said. Aaron glared. "Move. She's coming with me." Tank let out a low warning rumble that sounded almost inhuman. "Push that door 1 more inch, suit and tie, and I'll fold you like a napkin." Aaron ignored him, staring only at Lena. "You think running in here makes you safe? You're mine. You don't get to leave." The biker stiffened at the word mine. Ryder leaned forward, voice dangerously calm. "You don't give orders here." Aaron's jaw twitched. "If you don't move, I'll make sure you regret it." Ryder smiled coldly. "Try." Lightning flashed behind them. The storm outside was brutal. But the storm inside the bar had only begun to break. For a moment, the only sound in the bar was the roar of thunder. Aaron stood defiantly on the threshold, drenched from the downpour, but too proud to wipe the water from his face. Ryder didn't move. Neither did the dozen bikers behind him, forming a broad wall of leather, muscle, and silent warning. Aaron tried to smirk, but it twitched, cracking under nerves he didn't want to show. "I'll call the police," he snapped. "You're harboring a fugitive." Ryder raised an eyebrow. "She walked in here. We didn't drag her. She's unstable," Aaron continued quickly, voice rising. "Emotional. Irrational. She lies. She..." "Stop." Ryder took 1 step closer. The rain behind Aaron suddenly felt colder, like even the sky was leaning in to listen. "I've heard every excuse scumbags use when a woman runs from them. You're not special." A few bikers snorted in agreement. Aaron glared at them, then looked past Ryder to Lena again. The way she shrank back at his gaze told every man in the room more than her words ever could. Her fingers dug into her knees, knuckles white, breath shallow and shaking. Aaron pointed at her, jabbing the air like she was an object instead of a person. "She's carrying my child. I have a right." Ryder cut him off with a bark of laughter that held no humor. "You lost your rights the moment she was too scared to stay in the same house as you." Aaron's jaw clenched. "You don't know anything about us." Tank, still looming by the door, folded his arms slowly. "We know enough." A thick, smothering tension filled the space between them. The bikers stood shoulder to shoulder, silent, focused, ready to take instructions. Outside, the storm raged harder, wind whipping like it wanted to push Aaron back to his car. Ghost leaned against the wall, a toothpick between his teeth. "You really wanna start something in here? With all of us? Over a woman who clearly doesn't want to go with you?" Aaron's breath hitched, but he covered it with another angry glare. "This place is a dump. You people are criminals. We're not the ones terrorizing a pregnant woman," Smoke said from the bar. "But keep talking. I can stand here all night." Aaron stepped backward. Not much, just an inch, but everyone noticed. Ryder's voice softened, though his stance stayed firm. Walk away. Now. No. Aaron's voice cracked before he steadied it. This isn't over. I'm coming back. I'll bring people. People who will make you regret sticking your noses where they don't belong. Ryder's lips curled into a slow, cold smile. We'll leave the light on for you. That was it. The final straw for Aaron. He spun on his heel and stormed to his car, slamming the door so hard it echoed. The engine revved, tires screeched, and the car fishtailed through the rain-soaked road before disappearing into the storm. Silence. Relieved, exhausted silence. Lena sank forward, burying her face in her hands. Her shoulders trembled. A choked sound escaped her, half sob, half gasp. Tank carefully knelt beside her, his huge hand awkwardly patting her arm. You're safe now, he said gruffly. Nobody's getting through that door unless we let him. Ryder approached slowly, not wanting to overwhelm her. When she lifted her face, her eyes were red, rimmed with fear and something else, shame. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to bring this into your bar. I didn't think he'd follow me. Ryder shook his head. You don't apologize for needing help. But he'll be back, she said, voice cracking. He never lets anything go. He wants control, over me, the baby, everything. Not tonight, Ryder said firmly. Tonight, you're with us. Her lips parted as if to speak, but she sucked in a sharp breath instead. Her eyes widened in alarm. Ryder, something's wrong. He knelt instantly. What is it? Her hands flew to her belly, face contorting with pain. I think something's happening. Tank stood up fast. What's happening? Lena sucked in another breath, but this one turned into a cry. My water just broke. The entire bar froze. Then everything erupted at once. The bar erupted into chaos, but not the kind anyone had expected. The storm outside pounded against the roof, lightning flashing through the windows, but inside, all eyes were on Lena. Her back arched as another contraction hit, and a scream tore from her throat that silenced the music, the chatter, even the distant hum of the jukebox. Tank's massive hands lifted instinctively, hovering as if ready to catch her if she fell. Oh hell, she's having the baby, he shouted, voice a mixture of panic and awe. Ryder didn't hesitate. He barked orders over the noise of the storm, over the fear that had gripped them all. Clear a table, get towels, blankets, someone call Doc Mason. The bikers sprang into action with the precision of a machine trained for chaos. Chairs were dragged aside, beer mugs and bottles were stacked safely on the bar. Tank ran to the back to grab extra blankets, while Ghost tore open a first aid kit, fumbling as he tried to organize scissors, gloves, and cloths. Even Smokes, the old-timer who usually sat silently in the corner, was rummaging for anything useful. Lena clutched Ryder's hand so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He didn't pull away. You're doing great, he murmured, voice calm but commanding. Breathe. Focus. You've got this. I can't. She gasped between screams, face twisted with pain. It's coming. I can't. Yes, you can, Ryder said firmly, leaning closer. You made it this far. You've been running through storms for hours. You are stronger than you think. Right now, you're safe. Nobody's taking anything from you. Tank held a flashlight over her face, shadows flickering across her tears. Doc's 5 minutes away, he shouted. 5 minutes, however, felt like hours. Lena gripped Ryder's jacket, nails digging into the leather, eyes wide with terror and determination. Another contraction hit, doubling her over. She screamed again, louder this time, a raw sound that seemed to shake the bar itself. Ryder looked around frantically. Anyone ever delivered a baby before? Silence. Then Smokes raised a trembling hand. I delivered a calf once. Ryder's frown deepened. Not helpful, Smokes. Not helpful. Lena's breathing became erratic. Please, don't let him take my baby, she whispered, panic and desperation in her voice. Ryder knelt closer, pressing a reassuring hand to hers. Nobody's taking anything from you. You hear me? Not now. Not ever. You're safe, Lena. Just breathe through it. Focus on your baby. The next contraction hit, fierce and sudden. Lena cried out, but this time, the bar didn't recoil in fear. They leaned in, ready to help, ready to protect. Ryder guided her through each breath. Tank held a wet towel, Smokes fetched warm blankets, and Ghost handed her the first aid kit. And then, finally, a tiny, fragile cry pierced the storm outside and the chaos inside. Lena gasped, tears streaming down her face. Is she okay? You got a baby girl. Tank shouted, his huge grin breaking across his face, almost childlike in its joy. Doc Mason burst through the doors, soaked and flustered. What the hell happened in here? You guys actually, holy hell. He rushed forward, taking charge, but his eyes softened as he looked at Lena and her newborn. Ryder handed the baby wrapped carefully in a biker's leather jacket to Lena. She held her daughter close, trembling, tears streaming, and whispered over and over, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Ryder exhaled slowly, his usually cold and unreadable expression softening for the first time that night. "Anytime," he said quietly, almost to himself. Outside, the storm finally began to ease. Rain still fell, but the thunder softened and the lightning retreated. Inside, in the warm glow of neon lights, among rough men who had never been gentle with anything in their lives, a new life had begun. And for Lena, the Iron Serpent's bar was no longer a place of fear, it was a sanctuary. The bikers exchanged looks, unspoken respect and relief passing between them. None had ever done anything like this before, yet somehow, together, they had delivered a miracle in the unlikeliest of places. Lena hugged her daughter close, whispering promises she had never dared to dream she could keep. And for the first time in hours, she felt safe. Truly safe.